Hello everyone, and welcome to our new episode of the Ivy Alumni Talk. So I see a lot of you guys are still joining this talk, so we will start in about just 1 minute. And before we actually start, I just want to make sure that my audio and videos are all good. So if you can hear me well, you can type 1 in the chat. Can you guys hear me? Okay, great. All right, thanks. Yeah, so we will start in about just 1 minute. And also before we start, just a quick reminder on what this talk is about. So as you may know, the college application process in the US is not that transparent, right? So we know the college cares about a lot of different factors, but they rarely talk about like what factors they really look at. So that's why we would like to invite the students from the top colleges and kind of share like their experience on how they apply to those colleges and also what they believe matters the most to those colleges. Okay. Yeah, so if you would like to know more about this, like the contents, then make sure you stay till the very end of this talk. And also, if you know someone who would be interested in this talk, you can also share this link to the others so that they can all know not the secrets, but just something they can know about when they apply to those top colleges. Okay. All right. And I think we can also start now. So for today's talk, we have the honor to invite a student from Harvard University, and she already graduated this year with the applied math degree. So yes, so we have Yiting, and she so she's the class of 2022. So she just graduated, and we can first have her to maybe introduce herself.
All right, thanks, Dennis. Can you hear me?
Yes, I think it should be good.
Okay, thank you. And thanks everyone for joining. Glad to be here. So my name is Yiting. I just graduated this May from Harvard University, or as we call it, Harvard College, referring to the undergrad, I guess, school of Harvard. You know, it's a really big school with all the graduate schools, business school as well. I studied applied math. As you know, we have a general education curriculum where we also are encouraged to take a lot of courses from other disciplines. So I did specialize in applied math, but I also took a bunch of other courses of my interest, like history, neuroscience, and plainly like psychology and economics. So yeah, I think that's, we can elaborate further later, Dennis.
Yes, of course. Yeah, so we do have prepared a lot of questions for you, and also, of course, our audience can also learn a lot from your experience. Okay, yeah. So, and also, if you have any questions to ask to Yiting, you can also just type in the chat anytime. And if the questions are related to what we are discussing, then we may just have the responses like just at that moment. But if we will talk about those questions like later on, or we want to like just talk about that in the end, we will also save the questions for later. But of course, you can just type in the chat anytime if you think about any questions. Okay. All right. So I guess my first question, and also for just from our audience, is like, what is it like to study at Harvard? So for a lot of students, I believe that Harvard is like the dream school, right? Yeah. So you can type maybe 1 in the chat if Harvard is your dream college or dream school. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone wants to go to MIT. I'm not sure. Yeah, like it could happen, right? So anyone wants to maybe attend Harvard?
We also just lost to Yale for the football game this weekend, so understand that people want to change their mind to Yale now.
Okay, yeah, totally. Yeah, so if we have any football fan, then they may change their mind. Okay, yeah, but of course, we are all just curious, like, what is it like to study at Harvard? So maybe you can share a few fun facts with us, like how is it like to study at Harvard?
Sure, yeah, so I think if there's a king of university, I think people might associate Harvard with the king symbol. So I think that's pretty much it. It's just really comprehensive. It's very resourceful. It has everything that you want. It's also very exciting. I think some people, well, I mean, you probably know that Malia Obama, the eldest daughter of our former President Obama, went to Harvard. So you also meet all sorts of cool people there, which speaks to the quality of education that Harvard provides, since everyone wants to send their kids there. Yeah, so I think it's very exciting. We can talk about stories later, Dennis.
Okay, yes, of course. And do you personally know some like celebrities or like some political figures by yourself?
Of course.
Oh, of course. Okay, that's really good. Okay, yeah. So of course, I believe that like studying at Harvard could be quite exciting. And maybe do you have any like say story that you can share with us? Like maybe just one story that can show how comprehensive Harvard is.
For sure. Yeah. So so the way that we pair roommates for first year students is totally by random. You can submit what you like prefer, but you have no control over the process. So when I get my roommate assignment, I only got a name. So I'm like, okay, sure. And then I met her, this really nice, approachable, friendly girl from California. And then we talked and we realized we are very similar in a lot of ways. But then 2 weeks later, I attended a social activity with some other friends, and people told me, "Oh, you're that person's roommate. She's a really talented poet." And I'm like, "What? She's a really talented poet? I didn't know that." And then halfway through the semester, I was talking to some other people, and they're like, "Oh, you're her roommate? She's really talented. She draws such good paintings." And I'm like, "What? She's also really good at painting?" And then a few months later, I realized that she's really good at economics as well. So I think people just have all sorts of talents that keep surprising you. And when you meet them, they're just this really friendly and almost just normal person, but then you realize that they're actually the superhuman. I think that occurs probably on a daily basis at Harvard and many other good schools.
I see. Yeah, so I do believe that most students at Harvard, they should be quite talented in different areas. So for real, I wouldn't be surprised, but it's also good to hear from an insider at Harvard. Okay, thanks so much. And also, we did a pre-event survey when we asked like what kinds of questions the audience might be interested in. And I do believe that the most popular response to that is actually the application profile. So the audience want to know how we can just get started and also prepare for the application from high school, right? So I also do some like say questions and also interview with Etin before that. And I also have her application profile here that we can first just like share some stats and also share some of the activities, but we can definitely talk more about that. Yeah, so maybe Etin, you can first like just go through some of this profile, and also you can highlight a few that are most important to your application.
Yeah, for sure. So I think just most straightforward things are, I guess, test scores. So back in my days, we still used the older version of SAT. I got 2350. Well, it's not the perfect scores that a lot of people imagine, but I think it's good enough for Harvard. And I think from just what I got to know from my friends, my college classmates, SAT scores, as long as you hit a bar, I'm not going to say which bar it is because I don't know. I'm not an admissions officer. I think like getting 2350 versus 2300 or versus like 2280 doesn't really matter all that much ever. Again, yeah. So I think test scores are like that. For activities, I think probably my most memorable activity from high school, which probably made a great impact on my college application, is how I guess dedicated and thoughtful I was with volunteering. So back in the days before, like actually ages before Zoom was a thing for us day to day, I and some other groups of students pioneered virtual volunteering, which is a more efficient way of allocating resources to do volunteering activities. So what that means is I know a lot of people like to be volunteer teachers, and but I just took a more thoughtful approach to doing that. I thought, okay, so we have a lot of students who are in various places in the world with not enough educational resources, and those who can teach, I guess, like people in more urban areas, are plainly not where the children are, but they're also not willing to move there on a frequent basis. And we know that having a frequent teacher who you know coming to class every week is definitely better than having a teacher who comes for a week and then disappear forever. So we just realized that actually setting up remote classrooms in the rural schools and having those teachers log into the remote classes probably just once a week or twice a week will solve that problem forever. So it's a pretty simple solution. But I guess because back then, I guess remote teaching wasn't that much of a thing, we did it, and yeah, it was fabulous. So I think that the club also, I actually set up the local chapter at my school for this volunteering activity. And now it's grown to be, I think, one of the biggest clubs, if not the biggest club right now in my school. So really proud of that. But I think just the fact that it's been making an impact throughout just speaks to like just the impact of that activity. And I think that's probably what matters in the end. Because at the end of the day, Harvard wants to admit people who are going to grow up and become industry leaders, society leaders. So ultimately it matters what impact you have in the world. So I think that was probably one example that made me shine from my perspective, non-official, but
yeah.
And other than that, you can see I also did some other things. So yeah, we can talk about those later if people are interested.
Yeah, of course. Yes, I think maybe some takeaways we can get is that the impact of the activities is quite important for the application, because for the first volunteering event, you did mention that it's still an ongoing club at your school, and it's also one of the biggest club at your school. So I think by having that impact, it's going to have a really positive effect on your college application. Okay, yeah, so thanks so much for sharing the application profile. And I think maybe from some of our high school students, we first want to know how we can build up a strong academic background, because as you mentioned, like you don't have to be perfect on your SAT or just on like AP or IB program, but you do have to reach a certain bar to be considered as a qualified applicants, right? So I think maybe first we can talk about how to better study for some standardized tests like SAT or ACT. Yeah, so how did you study for SAT? How did you get like a 2350 score on the SAT?
Right. So I remember SAT actually was a bit of a challenge, because when I studied, or when I ever heard of SAT for the first time, I was still in a Chinese public school. I hadn't entered the international curriculum yet, which we'll talk about later. I did IB later, but I did SAT before I actually started IB. So it was a challenge both in terms of language, but also just in terms of the kind of questions that are asked. So I think one thing I did that really paid off was, at first I really took the time to think about the questions that are being asked. So I took time to think about the question patterns. What that means is, take reading, SAT reading, for example. You can realize that after every passage, they ask a set of questions, and those set of questions have the same structure. They always ask you, okay, what is, actually, it's been a long time, but what I'm saying is it has the same kind of structure. So just understand that, like, you need to emphasize in these aspects while reading that passage will greatly enhance your efficiency while reading. So I think I probably spent one full month, if not more, on just taking the time to do those questions. And after completing each set of tests, I go back and and think about those questions and think about where I did wrong. So I think after 1 full month of that, I started speeding up. And it was only until later that I really started to speed up my testing and eventually got to complete all the questions in time, because I know like time is also a challenge for SAT.
Yeah, I agree. So because for the SAT, it is a standardized test. That means for all the questions you will see on the SAT, they follow some kinds of patterns, and you can also have a set way to really answer those questions. And of course, practice makes perfect, right? So we can, once we know the questions, we can then do the practice. And it's also important not just do the practice right away. You agree with that? Like without knowing the patterns. Yeah, okay, yeah. So I think once we do the first 2 steps, we can also reflect on the mistakes like we made, so that we can also improve our score. I think one audience mentioned like if we mentioned that already, what was your position of the student council? Maybe we can just go back to that profile, and you can just briefly elaborate more on that student council.
Oh, right. So first of all, I need to say that it wasn't an important part of my college application. I probably put it in the Common App activity list, but I did not elaborate on it, which I guess means that it's not super important. So that's the context. But in terms of position, so I was the first generation of students in my schools. I think I had a unique opportunity compared to other people. So several other friends and I actually founded the student council. It wasn't like any of us wanted to be the president or something, because we actually built a more democratic and flatter structure of a student council. So everyone was a representative instead of a president. So it wasn't like a super but if you're curious, that's what it is.
So it's more like a democracy student council, like, right? So like but you are one of the founders of the student council. I think that says already about the positions of you in the student council. But yeah, so I think even though it's not really an important part in your application, but I should say that it's still impressive. Okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, and I think once we know about the SAT, another important aspect of your academic background is the IB program, right? So for all of our students in the talk right now, so are you guys taking the IB program, or will you take IB program when you become a junior or a senior? You can type yes if you are doing IB right now, or you will do that in the future. Or you can type not sure. Yeah, or you can just show any reaction on that. No, so we have no IB students in this talk. Okay, that's quite surprising. Oh yes, yeah. So I think we should have some, because when I talk to some students, I think IB is still quite popular in private schools. So yeah, and for the IB program, it's also known to be difficult, because for the IB program, you do have to be kind of well-rounded. It's not like in AP, you can focus on some specific subjects, but for the IB, it will be a altogether program that you have to succeed, right? But you also got a really good score on the IB program. So maybe you can share some of your experience on how to do well in the IB program.
Yeah, so I think some of the things that I'm going to share can also be pretty applicable to other programs. So I'm not sure, I'm not sure if AP follows that, but even in college, honestly, if you get into college, I think the feedbacks are really important. So I think one thing that really stood out to be useful in just like helping you get better in assignments, or just even just learning more, taking out of the program more, it's the first, you got to understand how the program is structured and what is being expected of you. I know it sounds a little weird, because you're literally just in this academic program, and why are you trying to do the educator's job of understanding, oh, what is this educational program like? But that's important because they are trying to cultivate some skills in you by instituting this program. And it will be like it will be so much more helpful if you know what skills you are being asked to develop, and just put your mind into it and just pay more attention to it instead of just shooting in the dark and just going along with it. And if you're lucky, eventually like ended up cultivating those skills. So I think just understand the criteria, and that goes from the entire program down to each assignment. Because I know IB has a lot of weird assignments like IA or extended essay like EE or TOK, etc. And the other thing I think is get feedbacks regularly. What that means is, okay, the way that assignments are scored is well, the teachers give out an assignment and they give you a deadline, and you just hand in the deadline and just hand in the assignment by the deadline. But the thing is, if you do that and nothing else, it's not, well, you're kind of just betting on your assignment being really good right away, right? But imagine if well, I'm not sure if office hours is a thing in your high school, but try to get feedback, but before you officially get in the assignment, right? Because just get feedback and understand like where you need to improve, and then you improve it and then hand in officially. At least that's how we do in college a lot too. So I would definitely encourage that. If you can't get feedback from teachers directly, probably do so from more experienced upperclassmen or even parents or other people. Yeah, get help, definitely.
I see. Yeah. So I think the first point is actually an interesting point. So maybe as a student, how should we really understand the criteria of, like, say, a program or of a class? Should we just ask the teacher about that, or is there any other way we can find out the criteria?
Yeah. So I think, well, okay, I speak from IB perspective and also from just any college essay perspective. When they give out the assignment, they usually tell you the criteria. Sometimes it's not right away in the prompt, but it's probably in some other folder that you need to find. So try to locate that. And if you don't know, just ask the teacher or some other administrative staff. Yeah.
I see. So maybe the criteria will be more like, say, for the class, if you want to get your final score is made up, like, say, 20% of your final essay, 30% of your daily assignment, and also about your class participation. So is that like that? And then we can see which component is more important than the others, and we can also focus on that to get a better grade.
Definitely, yes, exactly. And
okay.
I think probably, yeah, also try to talk to people who have taken the class, like people in upper grade. I think getting your peers' advice and feedback is actually really, really helpful. So try to make friends with people, not just in your class, but also a year or two older than you.
I see. Okay, that's a really good advice. So before you take any, like, say, AP or IB classes, do you ask for the feedbacks before you actually get into that class? Because in that case, you will get more prepared for the class, and also eventually you can get a better grade on the test. Okay, so that's a really useful advice. Okay, yeah, so I think that's all for the academic part. And also another important part in your application, I think, is the volunteering. So yeah, and I just want to do one more survey in the chat. So any one of you are doing volunteering right now, or have you done any volunteering before? You can type yes if you have done volunteering before, or you're just doing the volunteering right now. Let's see if that's still a popular event or activity right now. Okay, yeah, because I think when I was in high school, we were actually required to do some volunteering. Like, we have to do some volunteering for the graduation. So I think it's also part of the graduation requirement. But since everyone has volunteering experience, if we want to put that in our application, how can we make volunteering shine? How can we make that more outstanding to the admission officers and also get a higher chance for say admission like from a school like Harvard?
Okay, so volunteering, well, so actually my volunteering experience means a lot to me. So I think looking back, honestly, I think if there's one advice I could offer you, that would be doing volunteering is not just good for your college application, it's also an incredible life experience that will really be meaningful to you and hopefully will be really educational for you. And I say that because, you're spending a lot of time doing this activity. It's become part of your life and you're all very young and in your brightest years, like at teenage years or young adult years. And your time is really valuable and try to make the most out of your time. Don't just go to volunteering and think, oh, I'm just gonna grind out these few hours and then go home and play, I don't know what, computer games or what. If you're dedicating that much time to something, just make the most out of it. So I think I guess good results will follow if you have that kind of mindset instead of a more, I guess, practical mindset to it. Because I think, as Dennis said, you're right. Everyone's doing volunteering. So putting the word volunteering on your application isn't going to catch a blink of the college admissions officers. So what part does it actually what role does it actually play in your college application? Well, I think it's mostly through the essays and the kind of personality it's made you. So I think if you have ever looked at common apps, which is the app that you need to write, right? Some are short, some are longer. And volunteering can be really good stories that you can write about in these essays. Because of course you're showing all your GPAs and stats for admissions officers, but they also read your essay. And if they sense a really interesting and thoughtful and plainly a good person from those paragraphs, those stories you're telling, it's going to make a good impression on them, right? So I think my advice for volunteering ultimately, first, put your heart into it and try to reflect on it and try to think just what it is teaching you, what are you observing about the world? Because if you're doing volunteering, you're likely interacting with probably people who are different from you, or you're probably just interacting with a lot of people, right? And that's very interesting. It can be very challenging. So just try to get to know how the world works and write your reflections in your essays if you want. And I think ultimately volunteering is going to make you grow instead of that simply being a buzzword in your application.
I see. So maybe the volunteering itself is not as important as the reflection from the volunteering, because if we can reflect on the things we have done before in our essay, this can mean a lot to the admission officers because they can see who we actually are as a high schooler, right? So because they don't want to just see the stats and the data, they more want to see who you actually are and what kinds of impacts you will be having, like say in the future, and also just they want to see like how you have grown from those activities. And also, do you think it's helpful to keep track of all the volunteering and also the reflection? Because I know a lot of students starting doing the volunteering from maybe the freshman year, and when they actually write those in the essays, they may also forget about like the things they have done and also the reflection, right? So do you think it's helpful to just keep a record of all the reflection and the volunteering from the past?
I think that's a fantastic advice, Dennis. Yeah. So I remember, well, I did this for a bit for volunteering. I also did this a bit for theater class, which was a very interesting class to me. I wrote a journal, so it's simple, right? Just journal about each episode that you did. Like for example, oh, I spent 2 hours this afternoon, and after that, I always had some thoughts, and I wrote it down. And years later, you're going to realize, wow, actually, so I think, yeah, keeping track is a really great way to help you remind of the things and just string your experiences and reflection together when you look back 2 years or more in retrospect.
Yes. Yeah. Totally.
And also, yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I think people underestimate how important the essays are in college application. So people try really hard to get good scores in SAT and GPA and try to do some grand and interesting looking activities to put on their resume, but the admissions officers really read your essays, believe me. So do write good essays. And yeah, I think people just underestimate the importance of that. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, so I think the idea is that you don't want to list out all the things you have done and also just all your stats. Not saying that they are not important, but you don't want to just list all this like the things on resume, but it's more important to put your thoughts in your essays and show them what's behind all the data, the stats, and the list you got, and to show them who you are.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. Thanks so much. And also, I think we have a question from the chat. So which summer schools did you attend? So did you attend any summer schools when you were in high school?
Ooh, let me think. I attended again I actually needed time to think about this. So I don't think I attended anything important. I did attend a math camp in my sophomore summer, between my sophomore and junior years. I don't know if I even put that on my college application because math it wasn't like a super important thing on my application, as you can probably tell by now. Yeah,
I see. And speaking of math camp, did you do any like say math competition before, or like any other competitions before?
I did. So I did math and linguistics competition and won national awards. But as you can see, I think so first of all, I think many people won national awards. So I think what that goes to show is I'm just like not bad at academics. So yeah, but I definitely don't think that was the thing that made me shine. So
okay.
Yeah.
But I think if you just have all this like awards, it makes you a well-rounded applicant. Like they would know that you have the strengths in some other areas as well, and just that make your application more balanced, I guess.
Definitely.
Okay, I see. All right, thanks so much. Yeah, and also another thing is maybe you can also just share your own thoughts on this one here, because of course you are not the Harvard admission officer. But yeah, so according to your let's say experience, and also if you have like asked your friends from Harvard as well, so what is Harvard's application preference, if you want to like say guess or maybe like share your experience on that?
So I think during dinner conversation with a college friend, we came up with this really interesting theory that I think applies really well to almost every individual one of us. So I think that might be it. So I think Harvard likes to admit two types of people. One is a superstar who's really, really good at one thing, like someone who's won in, say, well, in terms of athletics, probably an Olympic medal or some equivalent, or like someone who's really, really good at math, not like just me, but like someone who's like top 3 or top 5, probably in the IMO team or something. So that kind of people, that kind of superstars. And that goes to apply to every area, by the way, like art, like poetry, or like, I don't know, probably entrepreneurship. Yeah, so first is superstars. The second type of people, which I think takes up more proportion in the student body, is people who are well-rounded. So people who are, well, not bad at academics, also who has, so who are not bad at anything, or more like who are good at everything. Okay, I think I should just be realistic, and but also have probably really good personality, because I think Harvard tries to interview as many of its applicants as possible, if not all. Like, I think alumni interview plays a really big role in the application process, and the alumni interviewer will write an assessment of you afterwards. So that piece of information goes to show what your personality is, and that will play a role in the application as well.
I see. Like, just use the example of your roommate, because I think you mentioned earlier that she was good at poetry and also economics and also painting, right? So I think she also applied to this theory as well, that for students at Harvard, they need to be either well-rounded, meaning that they could be quite good like any field they are interested in, and or also maybe for some like really superstar certain fields. So that could also be the key to like have the admission to say Harvard. Yeah, and also yeah, so I have some questions. Maybe we can save that for the QA later on. And yeah, so I think this will be one important advice. So we can, because for most students, it's hard to be really extraordinary in certain field. But what we can do is to be a well-rounded student and just don't have any, say, weak spots, or just we cannot have any weak, like say, aspects of the application.
Yeah, I think that sums it up well.
Okay, all right, yes, thanks so much. Yeah, so I think maybe just my last question for you is that since you study applied math major, and also just for the different majors at Harvard, which majors are considered to be the strongest at Harvard?
Sorry, Dennis, you cut out a bit in the end. So what was your last question?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I was asking which majors are considered the best majors at Harvard?
Oh, I don't think there's a best major. I think the best major is one that suits yourself the most, because, well, some majors apparently are more popular, but even for a major that doesn't like that isn't studied by a lot of people, if you're really good at it, you're also gonna be a superstar, and you're gonna be in high demand at your very niche field. Yeah, we have a saying in Chinese.
Yeah,
probably people know 行行出状元. Like in every field, there is a number one. Yeah, so,
of course. Okay, yes,
but,
thanks.
But in terms of applied math major, do you want me to talk about it?
Yeah, sure. So maybe because you study applied math, so what is applied math specifically? So for those who are interested in math, we have different majors related to math. So maybe what is applied math, first of all?
Yeah, so first of all, a major means a set of required classes. So applied math major consists of a majority of math classes and a few other quantitative classes of your choice. So that could be computer science, statistics, or just any other quantitative classes. Yeah, I think computer science and the statistics classes are the most popular other quantitative classes that applied math majors choose. And also, you also need to have an applied field, because it's applied math, right? So some people choose biology, some people choose economics. I choose economics because I'm really interested in it. So you also need to take a small number of classes in those disciplines to show that you have the knowledge of that field to apply math to.
I see. And also, what is like a typical career path for applied math major? So yeah, maybe what they maybe for your classmates, what they typically do after upon graduation.
Yeah. So I guess one thing I probably have to differentiate applied math major with from the pure math major. So I said that applied math major has a required set of math classes and other classes. Pure math major only requires math classes. So I think the implication being they're just deeper in math. So career path, basically any quantitative like roles, I think are a good fit for applied math major. A lot of people go into do finance because actually finance requires a lot of quantitative thinking, especially if you're doing trading. I know these probably all sound a little like unfamiliar to you, high schoolers. That's okay, but just putting it out there so that you have exposure. So finance requires a lot of quantitative skills, and a lot of people do data science. So that could be just in tech companies or just any kind of companies actually nowadays do have a data. Yeah. So other things. Well, there are also jobs that you could do regardless of what major you choose. Like I'm doing strategy consulting right now, so that just requires really strong problem solving abilities. And that's okay if you're like a history major or applied math major or econ major, because as long as you have that critical thinking skills, you're fine.
Okay, I see. All right, thanks so much. Yeah, so for those who are interested in math, there is a lot of potentials you can do upon graduation. So if you do like math, of course, you can just take math as your major. Because I also majored in applied math and economics. So I know there is a lot of potential for math because you can basically do all sorts of quantitative jobs like after your graduation, or just become a math teacher like myself. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks so much. And I think this will be just all the questions from my end. But of course, we also have a lot of questions in the chat. So I think we can also go over those questions as well. And if you have any other questions, you can also just type in the chat, and Eating will be happy to answer all those questions, of course. But before that, I do have some announcements about our Think Academy programs. So as you may know, or maybe you are not familiar with this, we actually have our SAT and AP classes open for enrollment. So for the SAT class, we have this 1400 plus group class that's from December to March. And we also have the AP courses from January to April. And for this set of AP courses, we offer 5 different subjects: calculus, economics, English, stats, and also physics. And if you do want to learn more about those programs, or if you are not sure which one is the right program for you, we also offer this 30 minutes college prep consultation. And just as you may know, on average, the student to school counselor ratio in the US, it's about 300 students to like say 1 counselor. So we do have this 30 minutes consultation available to you guys, and you can just sign up for the consultation for some AP courses planning, SAT or ACT study plan, and also maybe just the extracurriculars otherwise. So if you want to have some consultation with our college prep experts, you can feel free to sign up this consultation. And I do believe that we have a promotion for the consultation right now, and it should be about $16 for the consultation. Okay. Yeah, so I think now we can have the QA session. So I will leave the QR code on the screen here. If you want to just add me on WeChat and learn more about all these events in the future, feel free to scan my code on the left. If you want to sign up for that consultation, you can also sorry, my thumb is not working. Yeah, so you can also scan the code on the right. All right, so I think we can now go over some questions in the chat, and let's see what we have here. Yeah, so I got one question about your math competition experience. Did you do the AMC or like any math competition? So which competition did you do at high school?
Right. So first, I did not go to high school in the US, so probably we're I wasn't exposed to some of the competitions that that you have here. AMC, I think I probably took it at some point, but it wasn't in my final 2 years, so I don't think it went into my college application. Yeah. I did do, I think it was a Canadian competition. It's called like the Euclid or something.
Yeah.
I actually forgot, but yeah, I think I got into like a top something percent of like worldwide contestants, which I think what was a good cutoff mark. Yeah, but that I think that was about it. I did do a linguistics composition. It was, I think you have a US equivalent. It just tested logic and actually just logic. So if you're good at math, you're probably going to really you're probably going to be good at that as well. So I won a first class award nationally for that one. But yeah, that was about it. I think I did not do any of those too close to my application. It wasn't the main thing on my application.
I see. Yeah. So I think that would just be the proof that you are good at math, and that's pretty much it as for your application, because I believe that for those applying to Harvard, they should have some competition in their application. So maybe it's not a surprise to the admission officer, but it's also something good to have. Okay, thanks. And also, I think we covered the competition and also your major. Yeah, I can answer that for you. So, Eting's major was applied math. And did you choose major when applying to Harvard?
So we are not required to choose major when applying. What that means is, okay, first, they are going to ask you at the end of the application, what major do you intend to pursue at Harvard? But that is not binding. So you can say you can just say whatever you're interested at the moment, or just say what you're interested in at the moment. And you don't need to do exactly that at Harvard if you get in. But I think they just want to gauge a sense of the percentage of students interested in like humanities versus social science versus engineering. So it wasn't evaluative, clearly.
I see. Okay, thanks. And also,
I would say something though. So
yeah.
I would say something. It depends on the interviewer. Some interviewer might be interested in just they're probably just interested in what you're passionate about. So they might ask you that question. Oh, what do you intend to pursue in college? But that's just part of a conversation. You can just say your best at the moment.
I see. Okay, so maybe you don't have to have a clear intended major when you apply to, because I think they should be quite open for all the possibilities you will get. And plus, if you have no idea about a typical major, they don't like necessarily believe that you have the passion for that major. So I think they will give you the freedom to choose the major after you actually get in, and also you can explore different fields and see which major is the best for you. Yeah, and
we're
we
not
also
required to choose major until our second year.
I see. Okay, and we also got a question from a junior. So her AP US history GPA was B, and she's asking, will the letter grade B negatively impact her application for Harvard? And also, are all Harvard students are straight A?
So no, not all Harvard students are straight A's. So I think it depends on your holistic application. Having one B by itself wouldn't eliminate your chance at getting into Harvard. So if you're I think you probably have to come up with an explanation for why you get a B, because I remember I got like, okay, so some context. So for IB, the full score for each subject is 7. I got a 6 at math in my junior year, I think in one semester in my junior year. And that was ironic because, I just proved to be this math person who even like got some awards at math competition. So during my college interview, the alumni interviewer, he did realize that 6 in my transcript. And he asked me about it. And he asked me, why did you get a 6 in math? I thought you're really good at math. So that came up,
That was so awkward.
But again, I think that was one of his tests.
Yeah.
So I think I met up with him later, well, I mean, many years later. And I reflected on this episode and he was like, it was a stress test. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, well, by the way, not all interviewers are the same. Some interviewer might just not ask you about it. They might not even think that's a problem because everyone can be just, everyone can just like lag behind at something like at some point, and it's okay if they catch up to it. So yeah, no, 1B isn't gonna eliminate your chance at Harvard.
I see. Yeah, of course. Like not everyone is perfect, and of course for the AP, we know it's a hard subject. So if you have some explanation on that ready, I think it shouldn't like say affect your application a lot. And also, what kind of club did you attend in Harvard, and how to get into highly selective club related to business or investment in Harvard? Okay, that's an interesting question.
Yep. So I did not attend those highly selective clubs related to business or finance investments at Harvard because I think everyone has their philosophy. At the time, I just thought that there are other ways to get to know those professions, and that doesn't have to be investing a lot of time every week to do those clubs. So I did some other things. First of all, I grew up in China and I transferred schools a lot of time. So I saw a lot of different educational systems. Hence, I was really interested in education and cross-cultural communication. So I joined a club that put on these really great annual educational events at actually for high school students and for just all kinds of students, organized by Harvard students. So I became part of this organizing committees for educational content and conferences. So that was one thing. There are also some really great, just fun clubs at Harvard. There's this Asian American dance troupe that are really popular, and they have a great show every semester. I joined dancing. I didn't know I would do that in college, but alas, I did it anyway because a lot of friends are in it, and it was super fun because there are some really good dancers, but there are also people who have never tried dancing, but who are also welcome to join. So I think that was just a fantastic way to bond with people, get to know so many people all at once. Yeah, and it was good physical exercise too.
Okay, I see. That's quite a interesting club. And yeah, I'm thinking once you actually got into Harvard, there should be more possibility, and not just for the highly selective club. I'm pretty sure that you can find something that you are interested in, and also it's just important to make friends and also to find someone who shares the same interest as you do, and that's going to be great. Okay, and also if you are older than 18 or 19, does it make it harder to get into Harvard or other Ivy colleges? Do you have like some knowledge about that question, or?
As an age?
Yeah, as an age.
No, doesn't, like age doesn't affect anything.
Okay, I see. All right, and also, do you intend linguistic as your major when applying to, since you have an impressive linguistic award? Yeah, so how did you include that linguistic competition in your application?
Right. So yes, I actually did I think I did say linguistics as my intended major. Also, I was really interested in linguistics at the time, and I did that competition. I actually formed a student club to just learn about different languages, and unintendedly, who just became enthusiasts of that competition. I formed a student club about linguistics. I also did I think I did some research on linguistics. I wrote my extended essay, which is a research essay required for IB students on a linguistic topic. And I was really into linguistics at the time, and I tried all the resources. It was also a bit of a niche, so I think so that kind of just seeking resources probably spoke to my initiative, at least probably for my interviewer or etc. Yeah. I also took some linguistics classes at Harvard, and but eventually decided not to do it because, well, I think some people decided to do it, some people decided not to. I just realized that I could do a broader major, which is applied math, while still get to take some linguistics classes if I like. So I think that's a more flexible way to do college. But that's my philosophy. Yeah.
Okay.
Some people are just into something and they just go all in for that.
I see. Okay, thanks. And also we have a few questions about APs. Although it's a little bit out of your expertise, I'm sure that. But do you know like what kinds of AP courses, or maybe like what is a good number of AP classes or exams taken by students at Harvard?
I have no idea.
Okay,
Sorry.
it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, because I know we studied the IB program. So yeah, so maybe for the AP classes in the future, we will have more talks. So if you want to know more about that, you can also attend our future talks. Yeah, and we just have one more question from the chat. So my son is straight A's now at 9th grade with some challenging classes, but he doesn't do much volunteering or clubs. So should he give up some academic time in terms of GPA a little and do more other things to be more well-rounded?
Got it. So I would say that college application process inherently does look at all aspects of an individual. So I think so definitely, I think natural conclusion is that if you want to be really competitive for, I guess, a school like Harvard, you need to have not only academics, but also some other things to demonstrate that you are a not to demonstrate that you need to be a well-rounded person, but just to demonstrate your potential, right? Because if you think why schools select students that way, it's because in the society, if you want to quote unquote succeed, you do need more than one talent, right? You can be really good at academics, you can be a researcher and engineer, but then to make greater impact, you do need to have interpersonal skills, you need to have imagination and coordinating skills, leadership to connect people and to encourage people all together to make some greater impact, let's just say. So yeah, but then I think it also depends on what kind of schools you're intending to apply to. I know some schools that are more focused on engineering or like just hard skills, they do emphasize academics more than others. So yeah, I think my first step would be to do some school research and strategize what kind of path you want to take.
I see. Yes, I will agree with that. And also, just to be a well-rounded, it doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice your GPA to get better on the other stuff. Because to be a well-rounded, you don't want to really like sacrifice one thing and just to improve on the other. You kind of want to improve all the aspects together. So in that case, it's more of a well-rounded application for some colleges like Ivy League schools, because they don't really want to see that you are not good at one area, but also better on the others. They more want to see that you are just like strong in all the aspects. Okay. All right. I see. All right. Thanks so much again. And also thanks so much, Eating, for this fantastic talk and sharing. And also, yeah, if you have any questions or if you want to attend the future talks, you can feel free to just like join our WeChat group, and we will just keep having those talks to our high schoolers, and hopefully we can also help you guys on the college application. Okay. All right. So thank you again, Eating, and also thank you guys for attending this event. Yes. Thanks.
Glad to be of help.
Thanks so much. Okay, bye guys. Yeah, so this will be all for today. Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.